And we're not just talking about visual quality. And you can look at something and go, that's nice. But until you really get your hands on it, is it restored? Has it had color touch? Is that book the same book it was 80 years ago? Maybe not. And that could sometimes mean a difference of, if you take like a Batman 1, that's a difference of $100,000.
Welcome back, guys, to another Collectibles House Podcast. I'm Jordan, the kosher goy, your host, obviously joined by Liam, Mr. Yarwood, again. Good to see you.
How you doing, mate? You okay?
Beverage in hand.
Of course.
Very comfortable this evening.
Yeah, we're trying.
It's an afternoon evening. Yeah, we'll call it an afternoon evening.
It's late enough in the day, put it that way.
Nice. We've got Tom Duma on today from Ewbank Auctions. He's been in this field, comic book field, for about 20 years. But yeah, really looking forward to having him on.
Yeah, cool. We'd like to thank you for coming on, Tom.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know if you want to just give the listeners, the viewers, maybe a quick intro about yourself. Right. Let them know a little bit about you.
Well, I started completely by accident. I ended up covering a mate's shift, I think when I was like 15 or 16 at a comic shop. He was like, mate, I really need some cover. Can you help me out? I was like, yeah, sure. And I accidentally ended up running the comic shop.
Nice.
So
where was that based?
That was in Bromley. That was a shop called Time Trek, which is no longer there, sadly. But what I didn't realize is that I'd accidentally fallen into an absolute treasure trove. Like, it was a legendary shop. It was as tiny as you like it. It was beyond an Aladdin's cave. Like, you know, this was, you walk in there and it's proper old school TARDIS. It just exploded. Yeah. But what I'd accidentally stumbled into was just a real kind of hive mind community. And I was there on and off throughout uni for about 10 years. I was juggling that. I was working in butchers. I was working in a nightclub, and I was working in a comic shop. And eventually it all channeled into just the pure comic side of things, which kind of went almost in tandem, because at the time I was doing a degree in fine art. And I was just really hyper focusing. I was kind of dallying with some hopes and dreams of becoming a printmaker, or maybe a tattooist, or maybe a commercial artist, something like that. But although I love painting, I didn't really want to make and do it professionally. So that just channeled straight into the shop. And before I knew it, I'd been running the shop for a bunch of years. And I was like, okay, that was accidental, but thanks.
Amazing.
It was incredible.
What sort of age were you at this time?
Oh man, I started when I was 16.
Okay.
And it was young. Like, I was maybe about 19 when I took on the first managerial role there.
Okay.
And at the time, it was just an opportunity offered by the proprietor at the time. He was like, I like what you do. I like how you cultivate the clientele. Do you want to do it full time? And dorky 19-year-old me was like, all right.
Of course.
That sounds cool.
Jump straight into it.
And then just everything rolled from there. So that was like definitely shop one. And then I changed to a different shop over in Croydon after that. And again, another, like, seriously, like, decent stint, like cultivating a clientele, working there for about, that was just under 10 years, I think, in the end.
Okay.
Before I transitioned to where I am now at Ewbank.
Lovely.
So it's been fun.
Nice into Ewbank. Yeah.
It's gone in 5 minutes, honestly. I don't know where 20 years have gone, but it's gone quick.
They still look good.
Good.
So Ewbank Auctions, obviously, I know we've got a bit of experience there. Well, I have anyway over the last couple of months. I've been buying cards, not comics at the moment, but I'm a big Pokemon fan. So over the course of an hour and a few whiskeys, I'm sure you can convince me.
Working on it.
Why not? But yeah, so Ewbanks. So how did you land that position, and what's the backstory to that?
So me and my girlfriend, we met a couple of years ago, and that was very much a thing. And then she was living what felt like a million miles away from me in Guildford. And we started looking around Guildford, and I got contacted from a guy who was working in the auction house. He was, I don't know how, I think it was maybe through some recruiter. He was like, I've seen your social media. I love what you've done. I've had a scroll. Can we talk? I'm like, it really can't hurt. And that just exploded. That turned out to be one of the most amazing things ever.
Okay.
And then me and my other half were able to like buy the house where we are now, take on a much bigger role at what I thought was taking a bigger role at the auction house then. And that's just steamrolled since then.
Yeah.
So it's very much exploded.
Yeah. So would you say you maybe did you have like a big collection beforehand, or did you buy quite a bit from auctions beforehand, or was this like a kind of jump in the deep end, or just a bit more of a passion, following the passion?
So if my girlfriend's listening, I don't buy much at all. For everyone else, oh man.
Off the record?
Off the record, yeah. So my collection is mainly whiskey, antiquarian books, comic books. And I'm sure a lot of people out there may feel this. Maybe this is just the excuse I've used over the years, but I didn't notice I was collecting.
Yep.
I just kind of had some stuff coming, and I was like, that's cool. That's
exactly
cool.
how it happens, right?
Yeah. And I looked around, I was like, I filled 2 big yellow storage units. What have I done? Better sell some of that. And yeah, that went hand in hand. But I'd very much cultivated a big collection over the years. Yeah, love it. It's still going.
Yeah,
it's still going.
Okay,
and that's just pure out of passion. You're not buying them now for a bit of investment here and there.
I wasn't necessarily buying much at auctions. I've kind of been buying at what I'd say, ground roots level, like Comic-Cons, Marts, day of release, stuff like that. And a large portion of my comic collection actually comes from being given it in my first job. Before I'd even taken on officially the role, I was kind of like a hang-around almost, like, like when you're 14, 15, like one of the bosses at the time was just like, hey, if you want a hand, help me unpack a delivery, I'll just give you some comics to read. And I'd struggle to find a 14-year-old boy on the planet that's going to say no. So I was like, hell yeah. And at the time, Marvel have just gone bust. Okay. They've just sold to Sony for like 7 million or something dirt cheap now, considering they're now just sold for 6 billion. Yeah. And so I was getting
20 years worth of films coming out of all the rights and licenses. Yeah, what they've uncovered there.
So I was given a bunch of comics at the time, which were deemed to be near enough nothing. Fast forward a whole bunch of years, and you're like, oh, okay. Could I afford to buy them now?
Yeah.
Might take some time, but I was combination of luck and buying at the right time, I suppose.
Do you still have a few of those early editions? Or
most of them, most of them. Like I've. To the eternal delight of my girlfriend, I've barely ever sold anything. So, I might have to rectify
long-term
that.
I haven't actually told Nira, my wife, about the recent purchases, but
she won't find out.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's all for fun. Right?
Big secret. This ain't being filmed. It's good.
Keep it on the podcast.
Ain't it just?
So what we'll do then, I think it would be just interesting to know, obviously about, your background. You started, you studied at art college or university.
Yeah.
And that was something that you wanted to pursue? You wanted to be an artist, or was that
it's probably my first love. Like, so... Okay. My folks didn't have too much money when I was a kid, and like from as early as on, like a big routine for the kids was go swimming, and then we get put in the library. As again, like my dad, bless him, he's still around. I don't make him sound like he's gone. He'd take me swimming, take me to the library, and I just naturally find things I want to look at. And from the age of 4 or 5, I'm finding early comic books, because the libraries would have some early graphic novels, not like a comprehensive range, but they'd have something for the kids. Quite, it might be Asterix, it might be Tintin. I remember finding Asterix, Tintin, and Batman in pretty much the same year and blowing my tiny mind.
I remember Tintin.
Yeah. It was very cool.
Yeah, there was a series with Tintin, right, as well? It wasn't just the comic books?
So it was very much a series. It was like, So the Hergé was writing over the course of many decades, and he preempted a lot of stuff. He was an absolute visionary, and then they ended up turning that into an animated series as well for the more Western audiences. Yeah. So
he's from Belgium, right?
He is Belgian, like most well known to a French audience, but very much a Belgian. Yeah.
Very cool. And so you obviously you were renting the comics, you were taking them home, or you just going to the library?
I was basically just reading them in there and getting into it. So like, I remember, reading Batman 10 Nights of the Beast, which, man, that was literally being drawn as I was being born, January 1988, first issue released in May 1998. And I would have read that when I was maybe 5 in the library, not understanding a word, just knowing I love the artwork, looking at,
It's fine. Jordan couldn't read at the age of 5 either.
Snap. I remember looking at Mike Zeck did some of the covers on Batman 10 Nights of the Beast. I remember looking at that and not quite understanding what I was looking at, just knowing I couldn't look away. Yeah. And going, what the hell?
Okay.
Wow.
So I think you were quite open just a little bit off camera. Batman's pretty much the passion
for sure.
For your number one, and it probably makes sense from the first sort of experience or exposure you had. It gripped you from the youngest age.
Yeah, super early. Like the Time Trek, the very first shop I ended up working at, I realized it was kind of like a revelation years on that my dad used to take me there and buy me toys. And when something's buried so far deep in your memory, and all I remember was the toy. And I realized later on that, because the shop had been around for like 30 years before I got there, it was an institution almost in the collecting scene. And when I first started working there, one day I was just in the back room. I was just, when something just flashes through your memory, I was like, this is the shop where Pa used to take me, and I grabbed my stuff. So it was like a coming full circle thing.
That's very cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It was cool.
I think what the Batman was at the time, like the movie at the time.
So at the time, when I was young, when I was just getting into it, Batman, the animated series, had just come on TV, 1994.
Batman and Robin? Or no, Batman
it became Batman and Robin. Yeah. At the time, it was just called Batman Adventures. And it's... Yeah. If you ever go back and watch it now, Amazon Prime and Netflix have got it up. They've recently re-put it out there. Doesn't even have a logo. It doesn't say it's Batman. It doesn't need to. It's just an intro sequence of Batman doing his thing, and like Paul Dini doing some of the writing. That incredible artwork, the incredible music. It was done in this Art Deco style, and it captivated me as a kid. Still does now. I recently went back and rewatched episode 14, which is, I think it won the Oscar for best animated short that year, which redid Mr. Freeze's backstory, and it was written again by Paul Dini, Mike Mignola from Hellboy fame. He did like the redesign for Mr. Freeze. And it was the most adult grisly Shakespearean tragedy ever wrapped up in a kid's cartoon you'll ever see. How they snuck that through, I do not know.
Yeah.
It's just death, misery, and sadness. And as a kid, you're like, as an adult, I'm watching it, I'm like,
you're on a bit of a buzz, you're enjoying it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Cool. I always felt like the Batman, or over the course of when it first came out, they're great villains.
Oh, his rogues gallery.
You could argue, I think they're some of the best. They've got the best stories to them, the depth of character, and you actually sort of buy into them a bit more, not more than Batman, but they're equal.
You've nailed it. You absolutely do. Like, you know who Batman is. You've got him, and then suddenly you find a new villain. You're like, who? How? What? Okay.
Yeah. Works really well. Very cool.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, as far as that, obviously, Batman's been your thing, and it's sort of brought you into this market. Your position at Ewbanks now, do you get to do stuff around Batman? Is there much Batman memorabilia that comes through Ewbanks?
So the other day, I had a Tony Daniels original piece come through that was sketched at San Diego 2012.
Okay.
I've never nearly been done for burglary so much in my life. I was like, if I could run off with this right now, that would be amazing. I've never felt the tug of anything so hard in my life.
Yeah.
Tony Daniel, when the New 52 relaunched, which was a big movement for DC and a big movement for Batman, Tony Daniel was responsible for taking care of the artwork duties on Detective Comics, like the Batman title. Before Batman was his own title, he appears in Detective Comics. Okay. And for Tony Daniel's artwork on Detective Comics, and I was looking at it going, this was what? Dear God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's...
Well, give us a rough idea for people that maybe not quite so sure. What would be the rough value of something like that now?
Oh, gosh. I mean, at the time, the vendor perhaps maybe paid a $100 to $200, and he could comfortably expect a $2,000 return on it right now.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
So, if, for a bit of paper that's been sat in a drawer for a while that he had done out of love, if he wants to sell, and he does want to sell, but
that's cool.
There's some massive returns in some of those things right now.
Yeah. That's cool.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it ever so briefly there, obviously tongue in cheek for sure, a bit of burglary, but maybe from your side of things, is there any big sort of, I guess, scandals or bits like that you get in the industry when it comes to auctioning high-end memorabilia pieces or comics per se? Have you ever come across anything like that?
Not necessarily in comics. I think it's fair to say the auction industry has come a long way, and come a long, long way in terms of, like, you've only got to look back at high-end commerce maybe 40 to 60 years ago to realize there was quite a lot going amiss. Whereas in the modern era, no, it's pretty cool. And comics are, I mean, not that I've seen, it's a great question, but there are some kind of scandals hitting the surfaces, but they're really quite minor. They're not about to turn the wave of collecting or turn the tide, so to speak. It's really good to hear. I mean, probably from our point of view, like the coins and the whiskey market, it is pretty much community based. Very much so.
So, maybe potential bad actors or some unfortunate
events.
There's always unfortunate events, of course.
Sure.
There's
there
always,
will be.
Things. But yeah, I think community side of it, and it's obviously nice to hear that, comics particularly, I think is probably one step above that when it comes to community. And
well, everyone knows so much more now. Like, we guys can meet and know each other quite briefly and have a very in-depth chat about heavy duty stuff, which 30, 40 years ago would have been nigh on impossible. We wouldn't have known what we were all into. And by the beauty of connecting and, community, the internet, it's very easy now to spot a rat. Yeah. And no one wants that.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
You just don't need it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, because we've been doing, like you said, you've been in whiskey for a while. We've been doing coins for a while. And there's obviously so many crossovers with, the collectibles market. It's interesting we've got some people, friends of ours, they collect everything from coins to comics to this and that. We had a previous guest, Tom Pelkey, he brought some, was it Mr. Captain Britain?
Captain Britain,
brought in. Comics from, when he was a kid. He literally just got those when he was probably 13, 14.
Wow.
But he's a huge coin collector. Likewise, he collects art, he does all these sort of things. So, it's nice to see the crossovers, and you can sort of pick people. You go to these, conventions and you see the same sort of similar people. So it's nice. Everyone knows everyone. It's a nice sort of community, isn't it?
Yeah.
As far as because going on to that, as far as like the grading scale with comics, has it always been the set sort of grading scale, like the CGC?
No.
Or do other companies have different?
There's it's definitely evolved. Like, comics have been around for the better part of a century. Batman's just hitting 85 years. But CGC have only been around since the year 2000. They're young, and what they've done in 24 years is absolutely magnificent. I don't work for them. I've never worked for them. But what they've done, it's
use code Duma for 10% off.
Right? It's one thing looking at a comic and Bob going, hey, that's an 8. And Jeff goes, hey, it's an 8.5. And I go, it's a 7. it's tough. When CGC verify, it becomes an asset. It's an entity then. The funny thing is, Jeff, Bob, and Tom still work for CGC, but when eye level is buy level, when you brand something to that efficiently and actually put a set of values behind it and do it that quickly, they've not been, it's far in the wind, for God's sake. 24 years is nothing. It's a quarter of comics.
Yeah. And so you're saying prior to that, there was no other grading company?
There was no grading company doing it. No, they changed the game completely. So all of a sudden you buy something, by your word versus mine. What is it? Do we know? There was no way of knowing. I mean, and of course it is still a subjective art. Until robots are doing it, it's not going to be 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah.
But up until now, I personally like the fact it's a tactile thing. I love the discussions I have with my friends in the pub, 1 or 2 of these down, going, it's an 8.5, it's a 9,
Yeah.
And then you can have a howling argument for an hour. It's glorious.
Yeah.
But
it's really interesting just on that front. I mean, when we deal with people with coins, you get your sort of purist collectors who just want to actually have the coin and touch it.
Yeah.
You get coins now moving into the slabbing, the grading, and people want that as the guarantees of authenticity,
Absolutely.
the quality. When it comes to comics, do you find there's been a big shift in the market from people that want the raw comic, or now they want, for these older, rarer pieces, maybe more investment style, they want the slab? Where do you feel that the market is there?
Honestly, it's both.
Yeah.
It's both. One of my biggest clients of all time, he'd buy high-end slabs and crack them.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to know what grade they were, but he didn't want them graded. Mm-hmm. He was happy to know it was a beautiful grade. He's bought some incredible slabs. All American Comics 15.
Yeah.
First appearance of Alan Scott. Now that's a tough book to find any copy. There's 5 times fewer than that book on Batman 1 on the planet. And he bought that grade and cracked it.
Well,
now that book there, so you're probably talking about an £80,000 book, but that's something he wants to flick through. He wanted to know what grade it was.
With gloves?
No.
He's just going straight to it to enjoy it. Pure enjoyment.
There's videos of me out there flicking through that book.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
It's a big book.
Everybody else that's got a copy of that graded has just rubbed their palms together. They know their value's gone up a touch more as well.
Well, we know of about 40 copies of it.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Now.
Yeah. There's not many.
And do you think, obviously I know it's hard to tell with population numbers, because is there a lot of data out there with comics as far as it's tough?
Yeah. I mean, many collectors, rightly so, very private.
Sure.
The gentleman I was just referring to, he won't want his name mentioned.
Sure.
He won't want it, And
that's his prerogative, of course. Yeah.
He's someone who's allowed me to meet him. There are many collectors out there that I'm getting to see now, not because I've met them, but because sadly they have moved on, and their families have now inherited these books, which have lain within the family collections for literally decades. And treasure troves are now arriving. We're arriving in a point of time where a certain, shall we say politely, a contingent of clientele are reaching an era where they're no longer with us, and now those books are moving on in the market. Right, they might be gifted, they might be given away, they might be sold, but those books are now coming to the surface, but they haven't been seen for, in some cases, 50, 60 years.
Oh, nice.
And in that, there's treasure.
For sure.
So it can get pretty wild.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Rusty.
So where do you personally sit on the grading side of things? Do you like your slab comics? Do you like them raw? What do you tend to go for?
I love it as a function. It's allowed people to buy and invest and love a hobby in a way that they didn't feel very secure in before. I'm lucky. Okay, I've handled this since I was almost in the cradle. I'm lucky. I've had an opportunity to handle some books which a lot of people have never seen before. I'm not saying I own them, but I've been able to see them, and that's important. And without a grading, without a company like CGC, or there are other grading companies, without that kind of verification and people having comfort in what they're buying, maybe they wouldn't have gotten into it in the first place. Now, personally, my stuff is raw. My stuff is battered.
Okay,
It looks like an atom bomb's here. Probably has.
Yeah.
And that's just how I love it.
Yeah,
sure.
I've got stuff that I absolutely adore, that I own multiple copies of. I've got a mint set of some of my favorite stuff, but I've also got the original set, which looks like I've just set it on fire. Maybe I did. I don't know, but it's still there.
Cool, pretty cool. I guess because we've had some good guests on, and you're giving us some really good insight, I think, into the idea that this is a passion collection. It is something that people get into purely because they love it. And now, obviously, over the last sort of 10, 15, 20 years, it really comes sort of the limelight now for investors.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
The one question I'd ask is, it's obviously very early days. Do you like the way the market is at the moment with, the flippers and stuff like this? You can't stop that from happening, but
it's a natural evolution.
Yeah.
Like, as with any kind of degree of popularity, no matter what, if it's a tactile product, at least you're going to see some degree of that rise with time. It can't remain the baby of, purists and elitists and the small contingent collectors forever, just because it's too good not to, And it's, gatekeeping's a tricky thing. Like, we don't want to say it's mine. Sometimes you might want, I went very Mr. Bean there, but sometimes you just, thanks. It's tough to kind of leave other people out.
Yeah, it's really, this great point you make. My brother, he's so passionate about Marvel, DC comics. I mean, he's got thousands at home, thousands of comics. I mean, literally one of these here, I bought that for him. He was happy for us to stick it on there, just as like, and he opened that on Christmas and he nearly reduced to tears, something like that, because he was just a pure passionate reader, loved them all, just like yourself. And then suddenly seeing some value of other pieces that may have gone up. But his biggest thing is he loves it when a new film comes out. He can give us the backstories.
Okay.
He wants to give us the details. He'll be able to reel off 15 comics that story developed from, that a 2-second clip happened in the film or a comment. And I
he's
think
almost
that's
like Dungeon
massive.
Master guiding you through it.
Exactly that. He's exactly that, and I think that's such a big community thing that I've seen in compared to other aspects of collectibles, certainly in comics more than any other, which is great.
Yeah, really cool. Wow. Really cool. Because it's one of those things that leads nicely to, I think, from our point of view, we love collecting stuff. We've got loads of people that like doing this. Do you think now that, the people that have been doing this for so long, do you think they're sort of getting pushed out of the market a bit because of all the pricing going up? Because obviously kids want to collect, right? And, kids want to start, I guess there's new stuff coming out all the time, but especially the older stuff, they're getting priced out a little bit.
There's evolution. I'm seeing a lot of older gentleman dealers who've been on the market for the better part of 50 years, struggling to find their way. I'm seeing dealers of the same age absolutely capitalizing and putting themselves in incredible positions. And also the youth right now. I'm speaking to younger gents and, ladies and gents on the cards and collectibles comic scene who've spotted holes in the market, which they haven't been able to do. And they've just provided that natural evolution. It's incredible. Everything's been catered to. Yeah. It's very rare that a hole doesn't get filled quickly in the market. CGC spotted something that obviously needed to be done. And we're like, I'm on that.
They're quick on
bang.
It.
Yeah. And what they've, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, but what they've done in 24 years is such that, they've had many, many admirers and, replicant companies arguably do their thing in some cases slightly differently with different degrees of success and quality, all are viable. But it was something that needed to be done. Like, I speak to buyers quite regularly on a basis who they don't have a clue what they're buying sometimes. Not to be rude, just, they don't know that because they're not in the same country. They haven't seen that book. But grading lets them go, I'm happy to spend XYZ money on that. That could be 500, could be 1,000, could be more.
Brought a bit more stability as well.
So much so. Okay. Like, one man's 8 is another man 8 now. Before that wasn't the case. It was almost like the Wild West.
You against, the next person next to you.
It's brought that baseline in that, or I guess scale you can measure against.
For sure. I mean, like, at some cases, we're not just talking about visual quality. You can look at something and go, that's nice. But until you really get your hands on it, is it restored? Has it had color touch? Is that book the same book it was 80 years ago? Maybe not. And that could sometimes mean a difference of, if you take like a Batman 1, that's a difference of $100,000.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
That's big money.
Yeah.
And for,
and for people that don't know, that can be a matter of just one grade up.
That can be one grade up.
One grade down makes that much of a difference.
That can be, if someone's taken a bit of pens to cover and maybe there's some interior tape, maybe there's some glue applied to the spine that wasn't there 75 years ago. That can be a big deal.
That's the scale they grade.
That's a house,
Yes.
Yeah. So when you put it like that, you don't buy a house without having a bit of research first. You want that thing graded. It serves a function.
Would you say the investment landscape then is more so people buying the raw books, grading them and reselling them? Or is it still down, you're going to really need some expertise like you've said there. Me and Jordan could look at a book and say, that looks fantastic. We're not going to pick up on any of those things. Someone like yourself is going to pick that up and straight away pick out 4 or 5 different things that are going to obviously impact the value to that. So would you say investment-wise, people are maybe better off raw and grading and trying to get that value there, or buying just purely graded and looking at maybe more market-wise for investment or holding?
Great question. Genuinely, and I hate doing this, the answer lies squarely in the middle. There is fantastic investment to be made buying raw and then grading. If you buy graded, then you're already paying a decent percentage of what that book is worth. And now obviously it will still climb. We've seen books climb this last year, which had been quite quiet for a long time. Fantastic Four, first appearance of Doctor Doom being one of them. That's just suddenly started climbing again. Robert Downey Jr. brings a lot of value to, a franchise. We all love him. Well, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that book is on the rise again after being quite quiet for some time. Now, if you buy that graded a couple of years ago and you're selling now, you're probably on the up. So maybe we've had different discrepancies, things like COVID come and go. But ultimately, the market, if you buy the right book at the right time, even graded, you'll still make money. If you buy raw, then grade, then sell, and it's the right book, you're very much doing very well.
Yeah. So the expertise maybe lies if you can get the right raw at good quality and grade it, you're maybe looking at slightly bigger turnarounds.
If you're provenance and stuff.
If you're willing to put in the work and perhaps you just know a couple of things, or you don't need to know everything. One thing I'll never trust is anyone that tells me to know everything about comic books, because I ain't met the man who does. I don't. I never will. Every single day.
There's a few of those around.
Every single day I learn something new. It's terrifying. Every single day. If I don't learn something new that day, I'm pretty grumpy because there's so much out there.
The whiskey's for.
Thank you. Very helpful.
You've been lovely, by the way.
That's very good.
So you're saying that, obviously it's interesting because I guess movie, the people that bring out the movies in the last sort of 10, 15 years have never had to think about how much of an impact they have on this market now.
Oh, Do
you think that's influenced a lot of the stories, or it's more so just when they brought stuff out? Because obviously people know when pre-release of the movie's coming out next year or whatever.
I'd say anyone that was making movies 10, 15 years ago, they don't really think about the collector market like this. That's a different set of finances where studios aren't considering investment purposes like so. What they are considering is domestic and international market. So if you take
selling memorabilia type thing, you mean?
If you take Deadpool,
what's going to appeal to the biggest market?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
demographic. Okay.
Deadpool Wolverine, I think at the time of filming, I'm correct in saying it's approaching 1.8 billion. It's a lot of money.
Yep.
It's a lot of money. Domestic's probably something like 600 million, international 700 million plus. Now that movie has largely capitalized on the success of two characters. Deadpool, New Mutants 98, it's been out for a while. And obviously Wolverine, Incredible Hulk issue number 181.
Yeah.
Yellow suit. We've been wanting to see that yellow suit for a long time.
Do we have one of these here? Maybe
we do have one of those here.
That is really good coincidence that we may have one here.
The whiskey
should we take a look at that?
Go for it.
Talk us through it.
Absolutely.
This one is in.
I love this book. Copies of this book.
Give us a rundown of this one.
Absolutely.
That'd be fantastic.
Now, as grades go,
nice.
We're on a 5.0. So definitely mid-grade. We're all kinds of nice. But the gentleman who bought this book bought it for $25 whilst visiting the States some years ago.
Okay.
Nice.
Just on a trip, bought it, wanted it, loved his Wolverine, wanted that book. Kept it in the UK for years. Came to see me at Ewbank recently. He said, Thomas, is worth anything? And I was like, it's worth something raw. It's worth something graded. We've got options for you. I talked him through a few processes of what he could do. He hadn't even made up his mind if he just wanted to sell it then. He was just literally coming in and saying, am I onto something? Because there's still a huge contingent of fans which don't follow every forum, don't follow every thread. They're not on Facebook. Some people don't enjoy that whole bombardment of social media.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
It's quite tough for them to find out the nuances that we may take for granted, for example. And it was one of the best parts of the job, is saying to a dude, saying, you put down 25 and you've got an easy 2K sitting in front of you, and you just watch the jaw drop and you're like, well, yeah, dude, this is brilliant. This is a very viable, real thing that's yours.
Yeah.
And he made a decision to then get it graded and move it on at auctions. That's what we're going to do for him.
So that will be actually coming up for sale at Ewbank's auction quite soon.
1st of November.
1st of November. There we go, guys. 1st of November, Ewbank's auction.
But for this one particular gentleman, he's done very well out of an investment that was almost an accident. He was buying out of passion. He's had it. For him, the book, you could almost say it's kind of had his day. He's enjoyed it. A couple of decades now. And maybe he needs to do something else.
Yeah.
So
a real interesting question just about that one there is obviously you mentioned it with, Wolverine in the yellow suits. Traditionally, that's the passionate people and the real collectors have always envisioned Wolverine that way. We've had Hugh Jackman has played Wolverine for many, many years now. Films impacted.
Hugh's been doing his thing.
What would be the difference, do you think, with that book being sold maybe a year and a half ago before Deadpool Wolverine comes out, compared to something like now after that film's a big hit?
Easily $500 to $1,000.
So we are talking a good 25 to 50% difference on the price.
You can see a movie swing a book like that sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't work. But, I'd say arguably on this particular piece, fans had almost given up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got to bear in mind, Hugh's been doing his thing for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, like, he came out in his black leather and he looked great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't know if we're still calling him Hugh Jackman. The fella's 6'5", but you know, he's being a big
can't.
lad.
You can. Yeah. You've got enough height on you. You can.
Camera can't see this, but his feet are over there somewhere.
Yeah, they're parking the car. It's Hugh's been doing his thing for a while, and you know, we got a little tease. They tease what they call the helm of his you know, his helmet, so to speak, and it was in brown and yellow.
Yep.
And
cool.
But it was the exact same helm that would be in blue and yellow. Because in the comics, obviously, Wolverine's, he's worn black and grey, he's worn brown and yellow, he's worn multiple colours, but blue and yellow, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Nice. What do you think of the film? Do you like it?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. Better compared to Deadpool 2, I really did enjoy.
Sure.
For me.
Wasn't
so it was a nice comeback. Deadpool was fantastic.
Yeah.
Deadpool 2, somehow it didn't click. There were some big characters there, didn't quite click, but new one. Do
you think, because obviously we spoke about it previously as well with our last guest, actually, Des, talking about all the series now that are coming out. So all the spin-off series, all the series that you kind of have to see to then know what's going on in the next movie.
Yeah.
Are you a big fan of that? Do you watch some of these series? Like, you know, you got the Penguin that's just come out.
I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
I think
Penguin's good.
Penguin's good. I think what Marvel have really realized in the last year is that too much is sometimes a bad thing, and the audience was getting slightly drowned. They've dialed back, and instantly you can see the proof in the pudding. I think it's fair to say Deadpool Wolverine catered to an audience, and this was absolutely due to Ryan Reynolds' direct influence as well. They produced a movie which was much more in line with what fans actually want to see, rather than what they were hoping fans might want to see, or perhaps anticipating fans might want to see. I think they really did listen. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you've got a movie that's worth nearly $2 billion in your hands. That speaks. You know, you can't not ignore that.
Yeah.
So, I personally, I've got the Netflix, I've got Disney Plus, and I struggle with the content. I struggle to keep up with a lot because there's a lot, you know, if you're,
tons,
you know, you've got busy, maybe, you know, you've got some kids on the go, you've got a job. It's, you know, all of a sudden you're asking a guy or a girl to, hey, here's 30 hours of content that you need to realize this one scene's about. And it's like, man, that's heavy.
Yeah, they certainly hit that sort of, I guess, grey area, didn't they, after the final few Avengers films?
Yeah.
Where they really struggled identity-wise to pick out what do we want to actually do with this, don't we? And it was trying to cater for everyone, the people that aren't the passionate and know all the backstories, the people that do, and it just didn't quite work, did it?
I think almost the Avengers movies were just too much peek and buy. They were so good, so quick, so soon. It was like, oh man, what do we do now?
Exactly, yeah.
Help.
Yeah.
And it took a while to kind of resettle the balance for a while, but let's not knock the stuff. They were producing, in some cases, very cool content, and a lot of it too. You know, I'm not going to knock them down for trying to give us a cool thing.
Yeah.
It's just a case of there's only so much you can absorb in 24 hours.
Yeah.
You can't do it all. And what Deadpool was like a nuclear laser guided precision bomb of just what fans wanted in about 2 hours, 2 hours 10.
It's just non-stop on that.
Yeah.
Just every reference, every other reference was just,
No, is it Shakespeare? No. Is it popcorn? Yeah. Sometimes you just want popcorn.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool.
That's a fantastic way of putting it, actually. That's fantastic.
Very cool.
So yeah, I guess maybe just moving on a little bit there from sort of the, I guess, whole worldwide view of the content itself. Maybe getting a little bit more specific back into sort of what your personal passion is at Ewbank. Obviously, you're doing the auctions for all of the comics. Again, we do like people obviously looking for collecting first and foremost, investing as well. Is there any maybe examples you've got on maybe the positive of some really cool pieces you've seen come through? What's the maybe most expensive bit you've ever seen come through? Give people an idea, as you say, not everybody knows the value of some of the pieces they could be sat on.
I mean, not everything I see come through always goes to auction. Sometimes you see pure gems where people invest and they decide to sell in a couple of years. We give advice about when might be right to sell.
Yep.
Like one of the choicest bits I've seen recently is a really lovely copy of Batman 1. Now that's a grand book any day of the week. I'm still after a Tech 27.
Okay.
If anyone's got a Detective Comics 27 out there, they want to let me get my paws on for a couple of hours.
So just to dive on that, give people an idea. I mean, we know a Batman 1, you're talking, what was it, 1940? Give people an idea of what the rarity of a Batman 1, if you don't mind.
Batman 1, well, this particular copy I saw was maybe about 5.
What, ungraded?
Ungraded.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think at the higher echelon of it, like, you know, in the high 9s, I think there's an 8.5 or a 9. Don't quote me right now. But I think that was nearly the 2 mil copy.
Wow.
So to get those high numbers, you're talking about beautiful copybooks, which may not be easily obtainable because they're so ghostly rare.
Yeah.
But this particular copy in a 5, you might be looking at a solid $40,000 to $50,000.
It's a serious chunk of change.
Serious chunk of change.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And have you found, obviously Ewbanks at the moment, like you're referring to it, you're doing a lot more auctions now with comics. Are you guys trying to position yourself to be one of the places to go for comics?
Absolutely.
Or is it more, this is one of the things you're getting into?
My main goal. So when I approached them and they asked me fairly tentatively, Tom, do you reckon you can do 2 comic auctions a year? I said, you'll get a hell of a lot more than that. And we're just on 11 now in the schedule. I'm hoping to move that to 1 a month.
Nice.
Girlfriend might not be too happy with me if I don't take any holiday.
Yeah.
Work around that.
It's non-stop.
I want it in people's face every single month. If you've got a bit of money on payday, there's something for you. If it doesn't sell, that person's still got that book. It's a win-win situation. If it doesn't sell, they're not out of pocket. If it does sell, wicked.
Yeah.
No one's forced to sell anything. If they get a bit of extra money, cool. But the beauty of having a comic auction at the end of every month where you know you've got something to look forward to and there's a different range of product for you every single month is crazy. Because I've worked in a new comic market for 2 decades, and even though the product's new every single week, it's still the same in the sense that you know kind of what it is. You know it's going to be the new version of Batman or Wolverine, all of which is great, but you know it's going to be the next chapter.
Yeah.
Within the field I'm dealing with at Ewbanks, you do not know. I've seen original pages. I got offered some work from a very famous comic creators, their writing box the other day, their original legislation and letterheads.
That's cool.
Wow.
Their original pens they use. Now, is that a valuable comic? No. Is it a piece of interesting comic history? Yes.
Yeah.
That's something that just doesn't come around very often.
Where would you go to value that? Or what sort of reference if there's nothing out there?
Yeah.
It's pretty tough. Honestly, sometimes it comes down to gut feeling. Okay. Sometimes it comes down to genuinely what the vendor feels comfortable with. Like there's still an ethical situation at the bottom of all of this. Sometimes you're trying to take care of a client first and foremost and make sure they're happy.
Yep.
And then you're also trying to do the job of making sure they get, some financial dividends from it as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just raw gut feeling. Sometimes there's some research, like that particular instance is extraordinarily rare.
Yep.
That's what makes it cool.
Yeah.
So do you go on the raw, valuable sort of a pencil? No, you've kind of got to come up with something else.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So how do you find sort of, at the moment, that sounds like a huge influx from 2 to 11 auctions a year. Congratulations first and foremost. That's very good work.
A lot of hard work.
So how do you, yes, a lot of
long
work.
nights.
How do you find majority of your times being spent? Is that people coming out of the woodwork now with pieces, collectors? You've probably built up quite a big network. But,
I have, yeah. I've known people in and around.
How do you get enough content for that?
It's honestly, I turn away so much.
Yeah.
Simply because I cannot process everything.
Okay.
And we're looking to expand the division very soon in the near future. There'll probably, my department will be expanding. I'd suggest maybe within the next couple of months, just so I can get some more folks with me to help it out, because it's beyond the snowball effect. It's like beyond anything else I've ever dreamed. Like I thought when I first joined, I was like, yeah, I could probably do 2 a year. Maybe about 4 sounds feasible. And now I'm like, if I could clone myself, I would.
Yeah. Very cool. Amazing. And I guess, what's the sort of process? Because obviously the main reason why, auctions and obviously the data from auctions, I think is so valuable to people nowadays is, it gives them a reference what the prices are going for. Because obviously the retail and the auction price can vary a lot, right?
It really does, yeah.
So it's trying to find that happy medium, and that the client, like you said, is happy for this, but he's also got to be a bit realistic, right? Because some auctions are good for buying, some are good for selling.
Exactly that.
Would you say your auction or Ewbanks is a better buyer's auction or better sellers, or is it sort of in between?
Oh, I've seen both. Realistically, if you're buying new product at retail, it's going to take quite some time for that to accrue a decent amount of money to make it auctionable. Retail is its own different kettle of fish. When you're dealing with an open market like auctions, for example, it can go either way. I've seen books go really well because on that particular day, there were some collectors who needed it. And I've seen a settling of the market that suggests, you know what, right now, people are just making a bit of money back. That's one that's truly individual, auction to auction to auction. Generally, I would say the trend is when you're buying and have older books in your collection, selling those at auction means you'll earn money every time because you generally bought at a much lower buy-in.
So something like this one here? Would that
something like that. The gentleman would have bought
idea?
for, like, there we go. That gentleman has bought that for, shall we say, 6 pence back in the day.
Okay.
Now, we can actually reference the same movie on this one.
I had to convince the wife about that one.
Yeah.
Tell you bought it for 6p, I think you'll be all right. But Wesley Snipes has just reprised his role as Blade in the most recent Deadpool Wolverine movie. Again, that book has seen a jump.
Yeah.
You know, that book came out, what are we saying, 1974 off the top of my head?
Just because of that cameo appearance?
Just because of that cameo appearance.
Wow. Could you give us a rough idea? Obviously, again, I appreciate it's again, a pretty high grade.
Pretty high grade.
Give us a rough idea of the price of this one, for example, what you would hope to see if it.
I mean, shall we say that one there? What's he bought? He's bought in for 6 pence. He's paid his grading fee. He's probably looking at a return of £1,200 to £1,500.
Okay.
Nice.
So,
and is that X the Ewbank's fees? What fees are we talking about here? You guys are taking out of that?
Oh, we'll take 18%.
18% of the hammer price,
inclusive of that.
Yeah.
So,
okay. It's pretty standard across auctions. So.
Yeah.
And you guys then handle all the postage, shipping, bits like that?
Everything.
Yeah.
Like, he just dropped it off.
Yep.
So fantastic. He just came in with a book and was just like, can you help me? And the answer to everything was just, yeah.
Yep.
So,
fantastic.
But that's probably it's above and beyond the best part of the job. Like I get to see a lot of very cool stuff, which is wonderful. I might not necessarily own, what's coming for the auction house, but in some ways that's lessened my necessity to feel like I own that thing because I'm seeing a new wealth of treasure every single week. But genuinely the ability to give someone a bit of good news, that's something that's quite rare in a workplace. It's not very often. A lot of work industries that we know as in the Western world, we're often solving problems or trying to get someone out of a bind, like giving someone genuine good news just out the gate and going, you've won. It's cool.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's a fantastic insight into the industry. I don't know if there's potentially any other sort of real industry insights you can give us with the comic book world, or any sort of maybe fun stories you've seen of people on the good side. But are there any maybe where you've seen people come through with unfortunate, maybe not genuine comics? Or
I'd say buy a Batman one for 10 grand when you get offered it, which is what I didn't do.
Tip of the day. Yeah?
You didn't do that. No?
I didn't do that.
So this is the Batman one originally mentioned. The first grade, top grade was about $2 million.
So a top grade will be $2 million in the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, the grade I was looking at that point, it was, I don't know, maybe about 2. We're talking lower echelon.
But still would have been a nice investment. This one is off the record for if your partner is listening.
Is it? Wicked. I won't be sleeping with the bins tonight. Yeah, no, that's something but of course, everything's relative. Every situation, it's not always viable at the same time. My situation back then was really quite different to what it is now. Captain Hindsight's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And looking back at it now, I'm like, oh, darn.
Yeah.
At the time, it wasn't viable. But I feel very lucky because I've been able to enjoy that book. I've seen that book. I've handled it, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One question would be, as far as obviously, looking to the future, the way Ewbank is, and the market's going, sort of the direction the market's going in the next sort of 3 to 5 years. Do you see it slowing down?
No.
Getting more and more?
No, it's been speeding up.
Even with all the economical, situation around the world, do you think it's
because of that?
Because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people are investing and buying in a way now I've not seen in 20 years.
Do you think it's pre-COVID, that type period?
COVID was different. Before? COVID brought in, I'd say, an idealistic sense of boredom in a great contingent of the world as we knew it. And I'd say their interests were not misplaced, but they had different avenues to go for a little while. And now those people who were doing that are just naturally off doing their core stuff, shall we say.
Sure.
In terms of pure interest, in terms of pure investment and people being into this for slightly more organic reasons, it's never been higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So just touching on that ever so slightly, obviously we get a lot of people looking to invest, and like you say, a big influx of the world are looking to get money into tangibles, in slightly alternative assets now.
Yeah.
Do you have maybe a couple of key things you would point towards someone brand new getting into the industry?
Great question. I'd say we always get drawn in by big, nice, shiny books, like a first appearance. Okay. An issue number one for anyone who's watching does not always equate to a first appearance. For example, Tomb of Dracula number 1, not really many first appearances going on there. You've got a minor one, but Tomb of Dracula 10, first appearance of Blade. That's a nice first appearance. Now, if you're Tomb of Dracula number 10, first appearance of Blade, if you're buying a book and the trailer for the movie is out, you're too late. Okay. Don't buy the book when the trailer's out. You want to be buying the book when you're kind of feeling the vibe on the grapevine. There's rustles, there's rumors, if you're investing and you're investing hard, maybe you've seen a logo pop up in the Marvel calendar schedule for 2027. You know, that's you want to be buying about 16 to 18 months before a trailer drops.
Okay.
Because that's generally when you can buy the lowest and you can sell the highest. Yeah. Now that's on quite obviously brand new products out right now that companies are making movies about. Sometimes you'll see raw investment opportunities come around that just cannot be replicated. Like if anyone offered you an All-American Comics 15 first appearance out of Alan Scott, you'd struggle to find that book, let alone buy it. You know, they are 5 times rarer than a Batman 1.
Wow.
So sometimes there's investment opportunities that are raw and primal and cannot be replicated. Sometimes it's a judgment call. Generally, I would say if you can buy old, raw Marvel, like pre-1963, you're talking early Stanley, early Jack Kirby Westerns, early Jack Kirby monster covers, and you can buy those at nice prices, early Spider-Man issues, early Ditko Spider-Man. You never go wrong. You will never go wrong.
And just because obviously this is, you see all the videos of people going through, different thrift stores or, secondhand stores, comic stores, and they find these one-of-ones, see, and these videos go viral. Do you think that's something that still happens nowadays? Do you think it's still possible? There's stuff out there that you think is actually, just untapped. It's not.
I had a gentleman visit me yesterday and he came in to ask if his Superman comics were worth anything. They weren't. But in there, he had a little contingent of Spider-Man comics, of which he had the first Kingpin and first Gwen Stacy. His Superman comics were worth approximately 30 quid. His Spider-Man comics were worth 1,000 and he nearly forgot to bring them.
Wow.
So
it's still a really, I guess, opaque market where there isn't that general database for people to check these things across. Yeah.
One thing that Ewbank has taught me very quickly is that we have got no idea about how much is genuinely out there in collections, in Grandpa's loft, in the cupboard. This guy literally, he told me they were in his cupboard. He just wanted the cupboard back.
Wow.
And these were books that he hadn't really looked at in 40 years.
Yeah. Just wanted to get rid of them and then bang.
That was
cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Been there for a while. It's very easy on social media on these great big shiny, little clips online thinking, man, we must have plumbed the depths of what's out there. I think we're almost just getting started.
So fantastic sort of insights for people getting involved. Moving on then ever so slightly, where do you think the future of the sort of comic book industry as a whole is sort of heading?
We're seeing a lot of people bringing older raw collections and selling them on. Now, these have been around for a while, and I think generally it's still buying raw products, grading keys, early keys. Like the market that I'm seeing, people are desperately trying to find the earlier and earlier books. Which is getting a little bit harder, but the interest in doing it is absolutely paramount. In terms of the brand new industry, like new comics are probably as strong as I've seen them in a long time. I mean, I've dealt with new comics for 20 years and it's a very fast paced medium. You've got to have something new, shiny and exciting every single week. And the cover's got to be fit. And now as a result of that, you're seeing books with 8, 9, 10 raw covers. You get shop exclusives. You get artists doing their own series of exclusives. And I think people are really following artists now in a way that probably they didn't do before. Whereas in the early days of Ditko and Kirby, they were just the boys doing their thing and you had no option but to love them because they were the only ones doing them. You've now got clientele who've got more options than ever before, choosing what artists they want to follow. You've got guys like Clayton Crane, a somewhat mature-ish, Francesco Mattina, a guy called Art Germ, otherwise known as Stanley Lau to his mother. But these guys have crafted niches which didn't exist before. What was an incentive cover 20, 30 years ago didn't really exist. This is a brand new thing, which they've now made very viable. I've met collectors who prioritize just collecting one artist's covers and they will spend fortunes doing that because it hits them in the heart. It's what they want. They're not buying for investment just yet, but one day those little nest eggs of artist work will be. I still like to think of Alex Ross as a young practicing artist. The reality is he's now been working in the game for the better part of 3 decades and is enormously famous, and people trying to collect Alex Ross covers now in completion, they're in for a hell of a job. There's a lot of money there. It's going to take them some time.
And on that note, would you say where's the big interest coming? Is it most obviously geographically as far as country? Do you think there's any sort of country that's really taken off, like certain type of
Germany?
Could be Asia, could be Europe,
Germany, Australia.
Okay.
I'd say the States, but hey, it's always been big. It kind of swings and roundabouts, but the States is always big. But yeah, Germany right now has been an explosion.
Okay.
We've also got a lot coming in from Sweden right now.
Any reasoning behind that? Are they actually getting artists themselves getting involved, or is that a new market?
I think they feel less left out. I think, Comic Cons are going global every single day. People are putting out content in more ways than we've ever seen before. It's far easier than ever to kind of join in and get involved. It's the gatekeeping aspect of the industry has somewhat been left behind. Like since I started when I was 16, for example, to where I am now, the amount of girls and women getting into it is unparalleled. It's been an explosion in terms of, receiving the content, creating it, both in card. You've only got to look at the Pokemon scene, for example, to go, this is just the most exciting. It's bonkers how far it's evolved in quite a short space of time.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about, like you said, Pokemon's been around for 25, 30 years, and you feel like it's been here forever. Yeah. It's just in everyone's culture, everyone knows.
It's in the zeitgeist now. It's here. It ain't going nowhere.
It's subconscious, literally. It's bizarre. Dream about it. Well, I do.
My mother's heard of Pokemon. My mother's heard of Pokemon. Yeah. For her to be aware of anything other than her garden takes a seismic event. But she knows about it.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool insights. Thank you for that. I mean, a couple of sort of questions we do ask most guests that come on. From your point of view, have you got one specific collectible yourself that you would never sell, no matter the price?
Yeah.
What would be your prized possession?
It ain't much to anyone else, but it's Warrior Magazine #1, signed by David Lloyd at a Comic-Con. So one of the first Comic-Cons, and I've worked them for 20 years. Yeah. But one of the first ones I ever went to as a punter, David Lloyd was sat there kind of, I think at the time he was sketching something called Aces Weekly, which is his brand new crime and war comic he does online as well. Mm-hmm. I went in there like an absolute V for Vendetta hound trying to find a copy. I'd forgotten mine. Yeah. I didn't have one. And I was looking for a copy of V for Vendetta. Nothing could be found. And he was literally like where you are now in front of me. I was like, damn. And there was just a guy had a stall maybe 20 feet behind me. He had a copy of Warrior Magazine #1, which he sold to me for £4. And David Lloyd signed that. And I'm pretty proud to say that one's still pretty high grade. If I slabbed that graded it, it's probably about $1,000 copy. But
cool. Nice.
So fantastic. Just in the blink of an eye, there is money to be made. Yeah. Give it a couple of years, give it the right signature, give it the spur of a moment. You can make money. I'm never going to sell that one, but there's opportunities out there which just give it a little bit of time, and they do really well.
Love it. Cool. That's really cool.
What would you say is, on that note, what would be the thing you'd love to own? Is there anything out there that
It's got to be a classic, brother. It's Detective Comics 27. First appearance of Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First appearance,
That's
first appearance of Batman, first appearance of Jim Gordon. It's not even called Batman in it, it's Bat-Man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Anyway. Oh, yeah.
That original, yeah. Very cool.
I mean...
Very woke.
Yeah, that was... Who we got on that one? We got Bob Kane, Bill Finger. Bill Finger did the script, and then you got Bob Kane doing the artwork.
Cool.
And then you get like Jerry Siegel come in and doing a couple of scripts on Detective Comics, 28, 29. Jerry Siegel came up with Superman. So the Siegel, one of the Schuster partners as well.
Yeah.
So they were kind of mixing and matching writers a little bit, but Bob Kane was consistently doing the artwork for the first few issues, and it's just great, man.
That's the one for you, yeah.
85 years old.
That's the one.
I ain't found it yet.
Very cool.
If you got one out there, you're very lucky, and I envy you.
Yeah, very cool. Fantastic.
Cool. No, I really appreciate the insight. Obviously,
pleasure.
Yeah, I know you're very, very busy with the auctions coming up. I don't know what your next auction is, but
1st of November.
Oh, you said it.
We've got the Wolverine's going to be in there.
Wolverine's going to be in there. Yeah.
Any other standout pieces from that one?
A lot of original artwork, some really beautiful art pages. Yep. I mean, if you fancy it or want to just have a peek of what's in there, there's some really lovely stuff. What I like telling people is like, just have a look, because some of this stuff is going to disappear into collections. And it won't come out for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't even have to buy it. You can just have a look and go, God damn. Because some of the stuff I've never seen before, there's original pages coming to the forefront that vendors are coming like, how have you got this?
Yeah.
But hey, they have.
Yeah. Cool.
So Ewbank.co.uk. Just if you're interested in anything or you want to consign anything, just send me an email. I can help you out. We do free evaluations on everything. So it's super easy. It's no pressure.
Yeah.
Like I've had people just come in and go, how much is this worth? Like the Wolverine, for example, I told him how much it was worth. He didn't want to sell it straight away. He just kind of wanted some advice.
Just a rough indication.
Yeah. Give him a couple of months and he kind of worked out what he wanted to do and we help him from there. So it's easy.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, you've had good experiences with Ewbanks buying directly, haven't you?
Really
We've sat there with a couple of live auctions
really
going through, haven't we? And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we like, obviously, about Ewbanks and obviously yourself as well. It's actually just being a little bit of providing a bit of service and good help, not just trying to, grab as much money as possible as you can see with these industries, which is fantastic.
One thing I've really enjoyed about Ewbanks is that, and this isn't a hard shill or push, is that everyone there that I've met so far, like they give a damn. I'm pretty proud to say that. Like it's It's kind of tough to find that in a workplace. And because of some people, there's nothing wrong with this. A job is a job. It's all cool. And there's nothing wrong with that. But everyone I've spoken to does give a damn. And it's nice.
That's fantastic.
It's sustainable. It's sustainable then as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a job. It makes a difference.
Really, it makes a huge difference for me. Yeah. It's why I want to work there.
Yeah. So, that's great.
Amazing. That's been great having you now.
Yeah, I think it's some really wicked insights. Yeah, we've had some really good stuff there for obviously avid collectors, people looking to get into the investment world, which is fantastic. I think it's probably fair to say between me and you, Jay, it's probably tip of the iceberg stuff in the comic book world at the minute. There's some great opportunities for people to have a lot of fun and obviously make some good money. And I think we'll have to get ourselves, we'll have to dive in the deep dive of maybe the world online, see what's coming out. Check those calendars and see if we can pick up some cool bits.
You will. It's good.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much.